Sourdough discard. Why throw it out when you can create some amazing meal and snack foods for all to enjoy with your favorite mix-ins and toppings? My incredible homemade, tried and tested recipes using whole, flavorful ingredients will make you question whether to buy any of your processed, store-bought counterparts ever again. You gotta see these. While sourdough bread has been a trendy food, the sourdough itself provides so much value to your family's diet. In fact, some gluten-intolerant people can tolerate sourdough for multiple reasons, but overall, because it's just easier to digest. Sourdough is a wonderful food ingredient that balances out flavor, provides gut health through its fermentation process, and can be subbed for some, if not all, of the flour and liquid ingredients in your favorite recipes. Over the past couple of months, I've been making my new favorite potato sourdough starter and bread from the traditional New Zealand Maori culture. For this mashed potato starter recipe and bread, see my videos and recipe linked in the description below. But since I started making this sourdough, I have created some fantastic recipes that use up that sourdough discard you just can't beg enough friends and family to take off your hands to avoid throwing it down the sink. If you make sourdough bread, then you know you must discard or throw out half or a cup or so of sourdough every time you feed it once it begins fermenting. The reasoning is because if you don't remove some of it, your sourdough will grow and take over your kitchen and your house. To use a traditional sourdough discard in your own baking recipes, there is a formula you can use. Now, there's a little math here, but hang in there with me for a minute and I'll try to make this easy to understand. However, if math is not your thing, I've got you covered. I'll tell you the math-free formula after I go through the math, but for you mathematicians out there, here's what that looks like. While there are different hydration percentages of sourdough starter recipes, if you're feeding your sourdough with equal parts flour and water, then that roughly means your sourdough is 50% flour and 50% liquid, or 100% hydrated. Therefore, if you want to add 1 cup of sourdough to your favorite recipe, you simply subtract your 50% flour, 50% liquid discard from your recipe's flour liquid quantities and just substitute the discard for those quantities in your recipe. Whew. If, however, your sourdough starter discard flour liquid ratios are different, then your math will be a little different. Just check out a helpful website linked in my description below on the meaning of sourdough hydration and why it matters in the type of sourdough bread you make. So I hope I haven't lost you yet. Here's an example to help you visualize a 50-50 flour liquid ratio. Let's take an easy hypothetical approach here. If you're making pancakes that use 2 cups of flour, which is about 9 ounces total, and 1 cup of milk, which is 8 fluid ounces, then that means you can sub half of each, meaning 1 cup of the flour and half a cup of the milk for 1 cup total discard. We can do that because 1 cup discard includes 4.5 ounces of flour, which is 1 cup of flour, and 4 ounces of liquid, which is a half a cup of milk. It's really more about weight than cup measurements, and that's it. So that's a mathematical or scientific tactic in using sourdough discard in any of your baking recipes. Now, having given you all this math and a little science, if you don't want to bother with that math, then here's another way to avoid it all, particularly if you have a different flour liquid ratio with a less hydrated starter. For my recipes, I was able to sub almost 1 for 1 with my potato sourdough discard for the liquid only, since my starter was 50-50 flour liquid ratio. Because my recipes created a dough or batter, I simply just added a little more milk, water, or flour as I was mixing the batter or kneading the dough to reach an appropriate consistency typical for that dish. In creating my recipes, I took a texture approach instead of a mathematical approach. Thus, I really only did the mathematical conversions for my pancake batter. But after lots of experimentation, I realized I didn't need to use so much math just my baking skills and trusting my judgment, adding additional liquid or flour based on dough or batter consistency. From the date of this video posting, I will be posting about 2 videos per week over the next 3 or so weeks with the following 6 recipes showing you how to make them and what the sourdough batter or dough consistency should look like to produce a good product. I hope you stay tuned for these videos and give these recipes a try this summer. In fact, elicit your kids' help in making their favorite versions. Check out these 6 incredible versatile foods that use whole ingredients. You just might decide that store-bought sweet and savory snacks or frozen meals are a thing of the past. My first sourdough discard recipe is my sweet sourdough pancakes. This recipe uses 2 cups of sourdough discard, but you can have the recipe and only use 1 cup of sourdough discard. It also includes sugar, baking powder, baking soda, a liquid fat, and extracts. This recipe produces light, bubbly pancakes due to the acid from the fermented sourdough reacting with the baking soda. We're talking a lot of bubbles here. You can add your favorite mix-ins like chocolate chips, fresh or frozen blueberries, or even diced apples with cinnamon, apple, or pumpkin pie spice too. My second sourdough discard recipe is my blueberries and cream sourdough muffins. This recipe includes 1 cup of sourdough discard with lemon zest, Greek yogurt, eggs, butter, sugar, extracts, and the usual dry ingredients. You get 12 large muffins that sparkle from the sugar topping. They are sweet and fruity, great for breakfast. My third sourdough discard recipe is my cheese and chives sourdough biscuits. This recipe contains 1 cup of sourdough discard with the usual dry ingredients along with butter cut in and mixed with cheddar cheese and chives. They are very light and fluffy, lighter than the traditional biscuit as my husband Scott describes them. He absolutely loves these biscuits. You can't go wrong with a slight tang from the sourdough, with the richness from the butter and cheese, and earthiness from the chives. My fourth sourdough discard recipe is my sourdough pizza crust. This recipe makes 1 very large thick pizza or 2 medium thick pizzas or 3 thin pizza crusts. It includes half a cup of sourdough discard along with some commercial yeast, which is needed here since the discard has not been activated. You'll find oil and sugar round out this light, tangy, and flavorful crust. I'll share my favorite toppings with you as well. You can divide the dough, make 1 pizza, and freeze the other dough half for later use, or use the other half and make a tasty, cheesy garlic bread. My fifth sourdough discard recipe is my sourdough granola bars. What? Granola bars made with sourdough? That's right, and here it is. This recipe is baked and it is incredibly versatile. This recipe makes 9 to 12 bars depending on how big you want them. They are somewhat of a soft granola bar due to the 1 cup sourdough discard. The version you see here contains oats, dried cranberries, chopped pistachios, chia seeds, almond extract, and maple syrup. You can sub the cranberries with any chopped fruit, add your favorite chopped nuts or seeds, and your favorite liquid sweetener like honey or agave syrup. For the kiddos or the adults who are kiddos at heart, don't forget the chocolate chips or a drizzling of melted chocolate or dark chocolate over the top. Now that sounds good to me. My sixth and final sourdough discard recipe I'm sharing with you is all about my sourdough herb crackers. This recipe is truly a recipe that deserves the motto, you can't eat just one. Once you start, you can't stop. This is a very tasty and crunchy snack cracker. They are amazingly good on their own. What makes you crave them is the 1 cup of sourdough starter, butter, a huge amount of dried herbs, and cheese. No processed powdered cheese here, straight from the block and freshly grated. They aren't the healthiest cracker in the world, but they contain all ingredients you can pronounce. You already have, likely, these ingredients in your pantry or fridge, and this recipe uses a mix of both whole wheat and all-purpose flour. There you are. These recipes have been tried, tested, Scott approved, and modified to become the favorite sourdough discard recipes. As you can see, they include everything from breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack items that will curb any sweet or savory food cravings. These are great for a summer camping or road trip. School lunches are just plain old wholesome eating. Get your kids involved to create their own favorite flavor combinations where everyone in your family can be happy. Thanks for watching. I absolutely loved creating these recipes. I hope you give the ones a try you find interesting and vary up the ingredients to fit your family's flavor preferences. Please subscribe to my channel if you found anything of value, and remember to share my videos with your family and friends. Click on the notifications bell button to be notified of all newly updated videos, particularly so you'll know when I post all these recipes during the next 3 or so weeks. And as always, until next time, go bake the world.